Please accept my apologies for the lengthy post. My wife and I are 33 years old and have been married for 11 years. We live in what was once a rural location that is quickly becoming a suburb of a medium-sized metropolis. Our high school graduation class had a little more than 200 students, and we are currently approaching 500 graduates. I was raised on a farm. My mother just did not return home one day when I was 6 years old. So my father reared me. I assumed responsibility for the property. In other words, I put in a lot of effort. My father eventually stopped farming and leased his fields to other farmers. He got a job in manufacturing. He used the money from his lease to acquire more land. He amassed a large number of properties during the Great Recession. On one of these estates, Dad offered me a house to fix up and start a family in. It's held in trust along with his other property, but we pay all of the costs. My wife grew up in a lower middle-class family. A kind family had always treated me with respect. They relocated to the neighborhood while we were in junior high. We dated throughout high school and married once I had a solid job. Before that, I did anything to make a dollar. People would call me if they needed to haul garbage out of a barn. I can paint your house if you need it. If you understand what I mean. We have an 8-year-old kid. She is a stay-at-home mom. I currently work as a route driver for a huge snack company. I am on the verge of purchasing my route from the firm. I've more than increased the size by going into every mom-and-pop shop, grocery store, and gas station and selling as much merchandise as I could. Because the surrounding area is still rural, I have a large area. My objective is to finish purchasing the route before purchasing another truck. The intention was for the wife to drive the second truck. In my region, a supercenter grocery/merchandise is expected to be developed within the next year. It will be mine if I OWN the route. Otherwise, the corporation can split my route. As a result, I must complete the route purchase. We've been married for a few years now after graduating from high school. Our marriage has occasional hard patches, which I believe is due to the long hours I work. I make an effort to attend, but alas, am unable to do so. We've had a lot of fun and adore our son with all of our hearts. He's your ordinary adolescent. He is now interested in sports. He played basketball in the winter, baseball this spring, and flag football this fall. So in the spring, we hit a low point in our relationship. My wife and I talked about it, and we both promised to do better in the future. From late April to mid-June, our sex life was off the charts. We couldn't get enough of one another. To be honest, I might have gotten too much because I was dog-tired, but I still ran my route. My son was out on the field. I never missed a game, but I didn't make it to all of his sessions. In most youth sports, fathers play an active role in coaching or assisting. I simply could not make that commitment. When assistance was required, my wife stepped forward. Ted, the baseball coach, is the ex-boyfriend of Mary, a high school buddy. She was the brightest student in the class. She went to college, which is where they met. They married and soon had a son, who was also 8 years old. Their marriage was on the rocks. Mary returned home 3 years ago to assist her parents in caring for the boy. Ted moved here 2 years ago to be closer to their kid, I believe, to reclaim Mary. We fell back into our rut around the middle to end of June. We talk again in July and agree to recommit. We're going on a vacation. His relationship is still rocky. When mid-August arrives, the bedroom begins to heat up once more. After a few weeks, it cools down. September arrives, and we find ourselves in a deserted bedroom. I ask my wife to speak out, but she insists that nothing is wrong. My son has begun and playing flag football. He adores it. They practice twice a week and play once a week on Saturday. When I arrive at practice, I see my wife and Ted with a clipboard conducting drills with the kids. A number more fathers are also pitching in. I had no idea she was assisting me, so I bring it up when we get home. My son is overjoyed and exclaims she's not helping, she's a coach. She appears to have offered to be an assistant coach when she signed up her son. It's fantastic in my opinion. This appears to take a long time. When I'm there, the wife is constantly texting, occasionally calling, but mostly texting. Every day after school, they go to Ted's house where he works his son and mine out. He is teaching them how to be better, and it shows because they are the team's 2 best players. So when their first game arrives, I work in the morning and make it to the field in time. Ted and his wife are giving directions side by side. Someone places a chair next to me. It's Mary Cal Ling. We are watching the game. She asks if the wife and I are doing well about halftime. Sure, I tell her. When I look over at her, she's staring at me. So I inquire, what? She stated that her kid returned home after spending time at Ted's. It had been pouring, so there had been no workout. They squandered the afternoon away playing electronic games. When her kid walked to the kitchen to fetch more juice, he noticed Ted and his wife kissing. He dashed back to the game and informed Mary what he observed that night at home. Every day, I get up at 4 a.m. to drive 4 to 5 minutes to the warehouse to retrieve my truck. So I got up at 3:30 a.m. on Monday to check her phone. She'd altered the password. I figured it out after a few tries because she uses like 4 or 5 different ones for everything. I saw text after text there, some making people, so I took some screenshots. Normally, I spend one day in town. If I had one, I would sometimes return home for lunch, especially when there was a low T of sex involved. When I arrived home, she was not there. I called her, but she did not answer. I drove by Ted's house and saw her automobile. I completed my route. She said she was going to the supermarket. She apologized for missing me. I explained that I was merely attempting to catch her off guard. It's not a huge deal. The following week, on the same day, I informed her that I would be returning home for lunch. I was parked just down the street from Ted's. I'm not sure how she didn't notice my big, large truck. She stormed out of Ted's. She jumped in her car and drove home. I followed carefully, and when I arrived, she was preparing a sandwich for me. We had a pleasant talk. Saturday, after the game, I brought my son home, changed him, and drove him to my father's house. They were going to fish in the pond, and he could swim if he wished. I returned home. The wife, of course, was not present, so I went to Ted's. Her automobile was parked nearby. I dialed her number. She seemed irritated, so I questioned what she was doing at Ted's. There was nothing but silence. Then there's talking about the game. I urged her to get dressed and come home. She cursed at me and hung up the phone. I was sitting at the table when she eventually returned home. She cursed me again for accusing her of something. I motioned for her to take a seat. She resists, becoming increasingly angry by the minute. I told her a little more vehemently to sit down and shut up. Allow me to say my piece. I had a folder with me, and she inquired as to what was within. I told her to take a seat so I could show her. I began taking screenshots of her texts. She freaked out when I said I was going to look through her phone. I then retrieved the more incriminating texts. She attempted to justify it. Then I take out the nudists. She remained silent. I informed her that we were finished. I give her till the next Sunday to leave. On Monday, I was scheduled to see an attorney. Take her cloth ease and personal belongings. We'll figure it all out afterwards. She simply sobbed. She expressed her regret. I just asked a question I saw on a Reddit advice sub. What did you expect to happen when I found out? She didn't have an answer. I've been staying at my father's house since the weekend. I returned my son on Sunday so he could catch his school bus on Monday. I had explained to him that his mother and father would no longer be living together, but that he would continue to reside in his house. When I returned home tonight, all of her belongings had vanished. There was a note stating that she would pick up my son after practice. We'd arranged that she pick him up after school. She could stay until I returned home, or I could drop him off at her parents' house.